To the untrained eye, Oprah Winfrey is one of the most respected and influential figures in modern history. She's been portrayed as deeply empathetic, incredibly generous, and someone who spent decades uplifting others and giving people a voice. But the moment you step outside the mainstream narrative, the moment you start digging a little deeper, you begin to see something very different. There are countless people online who believe that her career tells a much more complicated story. A story filled with contradictions, controversial decisions, and patterns that don't quite line up with the image that we've all been shown. And at first, you might dismiss that. But when the same types of situations keep happening over and over again, when the same criticisms keep resurfacing across completely different eras of her career, it forces you to ask a much bigger question. Is this really just a series of misunderstandings, or is there a pattern here that's been hiding in plain sight the entire time? Now, to start this whole story, let's actually start from the beginning. Oprah's rise wasn't just impressive, it was historic. At just 19 years old, she became the youngest news actor in Nashville television station. And not only that, she did it as a black woman in a history that, at the time, was overwhelmingly dominated by white male broadcasters. That alone should tell you something about her presence, her charisma, and her ability to connect with people. In 1984, she makes a move that changes everything. She relocates to Chicago to host a struggling morning program called AM Chicago, a show that, at the time, was barely surviving. And within just a month, she completely transformed it. The ratings skyrocket, the audience grows rapidly, and suddenly, this failing show becomes the #1 daytime talk show in the entire city. This success leads to a rebrand. The show becomes the Oprah Winfrey Show, and in 1986, it launches nationally, quickly becoming the highest rated talk show in America. This is the Oprah that most of you know.
See why it's so easy to get involved with Oprah.
So your husband would lock you in the basement every morning and you would let him?
Yes, I did, because I loved him.
People tell Oprah what they feel.
Just because of his drinking, I'll never forgive him.
And Oprah understands.
And that's why I left, because I didn't want to die. I just wanted a break. I wanted my kids to have a good life.
Getting involved with the Oprah Winfrey Show, it's easy.
Thursday at 10.
But what really made Oprah stand out wasn't just her success, it was her style. She had the unique ability to shift between energy and intimacy. One moment she could excite an audience and command a room. The next, she could sit across from someone and make them feel completely seen, completely heard, and completely understood. She didn't just interview celebrities, she spoke to everyday people about real, often uncomfortable topics like trauma, abuse, relationships, addiction, and family struggles. And for millions of viewers at home, it felt like they were really seeing their own lives reflected on TV. That's the connection that built her empire. But over time, and this is the story that you really came here to watch, something subtle and very important began to shift. Oprah was no longer just facilitating conversations. She was becoming a trusted authority, and this is where things got dangerous. And it wasn't because she was presenting research, not because she was backed by experts, but because people just believed her.
And I have been there. I'm still there fighting this everlasting battle of my thighs, but I'm glad you won it.
Oprah Winfrey, she doesn't just speak her mind, she opens her heart.
They trusted her instincts, they trusted her perspective, and eventually they trusted her judgment. And that trust reached a turning point during one of the most talked about moments in her early career. This was her weight loss transformation. Oprah underwent an extreme, medically supervised fasting program that resulted in dramatic weight loss over a short period of time. And then she brought that transformation directly to television. In one of the most memorable moments in talk show history, she rolled out a wagon filled with fat, representing the weight that she had lost, in front of an audience of millions. Over 60 million people watched that moment. Let that sink in. That's not just a popular episode. That's cultural impact on a massive scale. But here's where things get complicated. Because while the program she followed was highly controlled and medically supervised, the nuance didn't translate to the audience. What people saw was simple. This worked for her, so it could work for me. And just like that, Oprah wasn't just a talk show anymore. She'd crossed into something much bigger. She'd become a trusted voice in areas that extended far beyond her expertise, including health, nutrition, and lifestyle decisions. Now, this is where the story takes a more complicated turn, because when you have that level of influence, the choices you make about who to platform become incredibly important. And there are many names you're gonna see within this video that she chose to platform, to promote, to send people to, that were actually massive criminals and quite dangerous, putting many people at risk. She began pushing boundaries. She started bringing on more controversial guests, more extreme viewpoints, more emotionally charged situations. And in some cases, she wasn't actively challenging what was being said. One of the most notable examples was when she brought white supremacists onto her show to openly discuss their beliefs. At the time, she framed it as an opportunity to expose harmful ideologies. But afterward, she admitted that the platform may have actually amplified those voices instead of discrediting them. And I think this was a massive misstep by Oprah and her team at the time. In my opinion, whenever you have a very negative voice, it is a bad decision to give them a platform to share that. You think that they may be going ahead and making themselves discredit their own beliefs because of maybe how ridiculous they sound. But at the end of the day, there are people listening on the other end, as dumb as you feel that message may be, that are absorbing it, believing it, and then following it.
We bring you today to Forsyth County, Georgia, just 30 miles north of Atlanta, which in the past few weeks has gained the reputation of being a hotbed of racism.
Now, Oprah afterward admitted that she probably should have never had them on the platform and that it was a bad choice on her part. She claimed that she wouldn't make the mistake again. But as she continued through her career, we start to see similar patterns emerging, just in different, more dangerous forms. One of the clearest examples of this comes during a period known as the satanic panic. This is a time in American culture when fear spread rapidly around the idea that secret satanic cults operating within everyday communities, infiltrating schools, daycares, and neighborhoods. And Oprah leaned heavily into the topic. She brought on guests who shared extremely graphic and disturbing stories involving rituals, abuse, and supernatural claims. Now, what's the problem with that? Many of the stories were never verified, and in some cases they were actually debunked and looked at as untrue. There were no police records, no medical evidence, no credible witnesses. And in some cases, the claims were proven to be extremely and entirely fabricated. But on the show, they were presented with little to no skepticism. And when you combine emotionally charged storytelling with a massive national audience, it creates something powerful, because people don't just watch. As I mentioned a few moments ago, they believe. By the early 1990s, television itself was changing. A new genre was emerging, one that prioritized drama, conflict, and emotional reactions over thoughtful discussion. Shows like The Jerry Springer Show fully embraced chaos as entertainment. The arguments, confrontations, unpredictability, that was the appeal. But Oprah existed in a unique position. She wasn't fully part of that world, but she wasn't completely separate from it either. She walked a very fine line between meaningful conversation and emotional spectacle. And to her credit, she often created environments where opposing viewpoints could be expressed openly. But at the same time, the intensity of the content continued to rise. And sometimes it felt like the emotional reaction was becoming just as important as the conversation itself. And nowhere is that more noticeable than in her celebrity interviews. Because when celebrities came to the show, the tone often shifted dramatically. The conversations became more personal, more invasive, more uncomfortable. Her interview with Michael Jackson is a perfect example. What started as a rare and highly anticipated conversation quickly turned into a deep dive into his personal trauma, his family dynamics, and some of the most sensitive aspects of his life. And you could actually see the discomfort build as the interview progresses. That wasn't just curiosity, it felt like pressure. There was a point where Michael Jackson was singing over Oprah Winfrey, not allowing her to speak, even though she was continuously trying to interject. He did this for a reason. He was trying to take control of that conversation, which he felt was going off the rails.
You know what? I mean, all the things ever printed in the tabloid, the only thing's ever been true is when they said I couldn't dance.
It
When we were
doesn't
here the
seem
last
to
time
matter,
shooting the
and it
commercial,
doesn't
you
seem
were like
the
in
wheel is
between
brought
shots,
no
running
functions
off,
till I cry
conceiving the
alone,
dance,
man.
choreographing the dance. You were up all night dancing.
Every day, and she didn't.
And similar moments happened with other celebrities. Prince deflecting questions with subtle resistance. Toni Braxton being questioned about her financial struggles. Mary-Kate Olsen and Ashley Olsen being asked about their bodies at a very young age. And the reality is, these guests couldn't easily push back. She controlled the audience, and in many ways, she controlled the outcome. But the control didn't stop at the interview itself. It extended to what the audience ultimately saw. There have been claims, including from Ludacris, that responses defending themselves were edited out of the final broadcast, which creates a very important dynamic because now it's not just about what was said, it's about what was shown. And when one person controls the questions, the framing, and the editing, that's more than influence, that's complete narrative control. Now, in the mid to late 90s, Oprah's influence had reached a level that was almost unmatched. She launched her book club, and books instantly became bestsellers. She builds charitable networks that raise millions. She creates an entire ecosystem of influence that extends far beyond television. And at this point, her audience doesn't just watch her, they trust her deeply. And this is a massive problem. This is a new level of powerful because it means her voice doesn't just shape conversations, it shapes decisions, beliefs, and even reality. Which brings us to some of the people that Oprah has been supporting that are monsters in the industry. The first of those being John of God, a spiritual healer who Oprah openly promoted on her network. This was someone that she would promote for people to go to get that spiritual healing. John of God was later accused of taking complete advantage of the young and older women and everyone in between that he helped, and he's currently serving over 400 years sentence in prison for those actions. This is someone that Oprah actively promoted to her audience, someone that she gave the Oprah trusted stamp of approval for people to go to for that healing. It wasn't just a connection that people would see them together and they would say, oh, this must be someone good to get help from. Many people were hurt. Many people were abused, and many people will have to deal with that for the rest of their lives because of Oprah's recommendation. But it doesn't stop there. Harvey Weinstein is a friend of Oprah, someone that on many occasions they had been seen together, conversing, being friendly, and it is very openly known that they were close. This is someone that had taken advantage of tons of women in the entertainment industry. On this channel, we call this Evil Hollywood, and it also has implication to the Epstein files. Harvey Weinstein is someone that would utilize these women, helping them get to their success, but on the way they had to pay their dues, for a lack of better words. And Oprah, being such a close person with Harvey Weinstein, made him look like he was the safe bet, the way to go, the person that gets you where you need to be if you are someone that's looking for success in the industry. And because of this, many women went through his door to follow and find success and had to pay those dues along the way. And Oprah's done many charitable things in her time as well, like open her school in Africa, right? Now, this school I'm speaking of is one that has had many of the female students from it completely gone missing, never to be found, never to be investigated. There also have been many reports of massive amounts of abuse to the students from some of the staff working at this school. All of this type of information was swept under the rug and raises the question, is there something much bigger going on here? Is that school actually put in place just to feed Evil Hollywood with young talent that they may be looking for to fulfill their desires? You're left here with a question that isn't an easy one to answer. Was Oprah simply a product of her time? A groundbreaking figure who pushed boundaries and made mistakes along the way? Or Is there a deeper pattern here of influence, control, and carefully managed narratives that lead us into the world of crime? Oprah is being looked at under the magnifying glass right now, and she's doing everything that she can to stay out of this negative spotlight. Share your comments, subscribe, because we're just getting started.